Tourism. What does it mean to you? And what does it mean to be a tourist? What makes a good holiday? For these Kuta-dwelling Australians, it means bintang, bintang, and more bintang. Or for these spiritually enlightened members of our community, it could be the infamous coffee enema up in the mountains. And for those of us down in Canggu, it means painfully loud motorbikes and droves of vegan restaurants. In 1979, William Finnegan, author of Barbarian Days and World Wave Catchers, said that Bali was overrun with the collision of mass tourism. This is a photo of Kuta taken 30 years ago. If he thought this was overrun, imagine what he'd say about today. You can definitely say the situation has changed a little. Now, you may think that I'm here today to talk about green tourism or ecotourism, but what I'm really here to show you is an entirely new model for tourism in itself. Because in my time researching online and in the field, I found that something was wrong with the core guiding principles of the tourism industry. But first, I need to give you guys some background info. My project was centered around a beautiful area in East Java called Malang. Malang has coastal mountains, huge apple orchards, and has one of Indonesia's biggest university cities. With my mentor, Pak Yudi, we teamed up with two awesome organizations, Mabuk Balap Surfing and the Malang Surf Association. Organizations that have been engaging youth to develop a love for the ocean and that have been creating a protection network for local warongs, bringing them customers while encouraging them to stay local at the same time. Now, with all this manpower, we were able to get straight into spreading our message of sustainability through local TV, papers, talking to the community, alongside a couple beach and river cleans at Lenggok Sono and Budiawu beaches. But something I found interesting along the way was after I'd given my presentation explaining our goals to one of the village chiefs, was that he turned the entire thing into an advertisement, offering jet ski rides and cheap accommodation. Where does this guy, who has lived up in the mountains of Java his whole life, get the idea that tourism somehow has to have jet skis involved? What made him think that? Where did the idea come from? Well, it has to have come from somewhere, and that place is more than likely Bali. Indonesia uses Bali, the overpacked and very polluted yet beautiful island, as a model for successful tourism, because they only see the economic side of things, which is a scary thought. But that thought is slowly changing, as more and more people, especially famous surfers, call attention to the state of Bali. Like just recently, pro surfer John Florence said that his experience with plastic in the surf is worse than it's ever been before. And it's important that he's saying this because the people in power are listening. The three main problems with the way Bali's tourism industry works are, firstly, the amount of pollution produced as a result of total unadulterated consumerism is enormous. Secondly, almost all the money an average tourist spends in Bali leaves the country almost immediately because people choose not to eat Indonesian food or stay in Indonesian homestays when they're in Indonesia. How crazy is that? And thirdly, what has happened in the most popular tourist spots in Bali is that the pre-existing Indonesian culture has been affected. It should be the guests adapting to the hosts and not the other way around. Thank you. Specifically, that issue of cultural adaptation has given rise to a new model for tourism called collaborative tourism. And there are already successful examples of this in places like Peru and Brazil. Collaborative tourism differs from other models because it's not about the location growing into what the tourists want, but rather the tourists going to places where they like what's already there. So this means hotels in Indonesia not importing massive amounts of food like pasta or bread, but rather people experiencing the culture they chose to come to and eating some nasi. Author Henry Miller said that one's destination is never a place, but rather a new way of seeing things. What's the point of traveling the globe if you're only going to do things that you could do in your backyard? Travel is supposed to be about exploration and experiences, but in its current form, people are just going about their daily lives in a different location. Now, some of you may be asking, isn't it up to those individuals what they want to do on their own holiday? Yes, if we aren't causing the kinds of cultural and environmental destruction that we are now. Now, I know in this presentation, I've been focusing a lot on what's wrong with this or what's wrong with that. So for now, I'm going to talk about a place in Bali that's really been doing some amazing things. About 10 minutes from school, there's an organic farm and retreat organisation called Bindu that's really been creating quite a successful business using those principles of collaborative tourism. They're connecting with local farmers who already have the skills, knowledge, and resources to run the business, not spending massive amounts of money training people into other skill sets or forcing the locals to adapt to the foreigners' tastes in any way. What me and my mentor want is a similar setup in Malang. While there isn't a monstrous tourist population there like there is in Bali, there's still so much to do and see while visiting the place. The kinds of tourist activities that we want to see are things like workshops on traditional arts and crafts, jukung boat tours, nature walks, and of course surfing. The kinds of things that allow locals to start their own businesses using skills they already have. Not giant water parks, not Western restaurants, and definitely not mega malls. The collaborative tourism model protects both the environment and the local population of the place. It's the realization that our egos can't follow us everywhere we go, and that instead we should be ready to listen, learn, and take part. Sometimes it's all right that breakfast isn't a smoothie bowl or smashed avo. Yeah. So what has our actual project been doing, you may ask? Starting off at the beginning of the year, me and my mentor's main focus was just to develop an understanding of our message in the local communities in Malang. Because the most important thing in the project is, of course, what the locals think. So we talked about collaborative tourism at several different villages, on a local TV program, and in the paper. So the next step was to be seen. We had to do what the locals had said they wanted to see and what they had thought would be best for their community. So we did several different beach cleans and helped to unclog this river that's blockage was actually affecting tidal currents. So at this point, we had our message out, and the river project was complete. So the time had come to get in a plane with 10 other noisy green school boys and head to Malang for high school trip week. The goal for the project was to build a surfboard library. The way a surfboard library works is similar to a regular library, but instead of books, it's boards. Anyone from the village can come down and borrow a board for the day and just return it after their surf session, which gives a massive opportunity for people to become involved in surfing and develop a closer relationship to the ocean. At the beginning of the trip, unsurprisingly, we did have a couple hiccups, with an unnamed person jumping into a fire and another unnamed person karate chopping a rock after falling off their board. So once we were able to actually start working, we were 2 men down and shorter on time. What we needed complete by the end of the project was a basic structure with a filled-in floor and a shingled roof for the board library. But in the end, our crack team of high school surfers were able to complete the project and get the building done. And as a result, people who never would have been able to become involved in the awesome sport and community of surfing now can. The Malang Surf Association and Mabuk Balap act as stewards of the Malang area, and they see surfing as a way for people to become close to their environment, appreciate it, and ultimately protect it. What I hope to see from the future of Malang is a place that balances modernity and economic growth with integrity and sustainability. I hope what I've said in this talk gives you a new perspective and lets you see this huge industry from a different angle. And I invite you to reconsider what you choose to do on your holidays, not just for the sake of the environment, but also the local population of the place you choose to go. Choose to ask questions and learn something, or just start a conversation. It's all up to you. And with that, I'd like to thank my mentors, Pak Yudi and Ibu Harriet, as well as Pak Jade, Pak Lance, Pak Ken, Green Schoolers, and of course the Malang community. Thank you.